Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to turn on my video today, despite not showing my face, to show Syrians inside and outside the country, and to show the whole world that I am also a human. Let's just treat each other like this. Thank you.
Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Muhammad Abu Bakr. I'm the president and co-founder of the African Middle Eastern Leadership Project, or AMEL for short. We're an organization dedicated to empowering young activists with trainings and connections so that they can more safely and more effectively build resilient, inclusive societies that are free from discrimination, from persecution and oppression. I'm here with AMEL's executive director, Megan Hallahan, who will help navigate us through this hour. Megan, over to you.
Indeed, thank you so much and welcome all. We are so thankful to everyone involved and attending this vigil, and to Together We Remember for organizing it, and all of the coalition partners who are having incredibly moving sessions today, all throughout the day, from South Africa, organizations working on Holocaust education, organizations in Rwanda, Bosnia, and so many other places around the world. Very special thank you to the incredible members of the AMEL community from all over the world who are here with us. We invite you now to light your candles and to hold them up to the camera. We know that some of you are doing that to honor loved ones lost in genocides, while others are here standing in solidarity and allyship with you. We thank each and every one of you from the bottom of our hearts. Right, thank you again. So we have so many important sessions during this vigil, and we don't want to repeat what others are already covering. So today we want to share with you some stories from across the Middle East and Africa, particularly from Syria, from Yemen, from Sudan. Voices and stories about human impacts of hate and identity-based violence, but also how young people are interrupting the cycles that lead to genocides and mass atrocities. So let's begin with some incredible words from poet Emi Mahmoud, seen here inspiring the United Nations as she has inspired us and so many around the world.
Memories of my childhood live between the rings of sand around my ankles and the desert heat in my lungs. I still believe that nothing washes worry from tired skin better than the Nile and my grandma's hands. Every day, I go to school with the weight of dead neighbors on my shoulders. The first time I saw bomb smoke, it didn't wind and billow like the heat from our kitchen hearth, but it forced itself on the Darfur sky, smothering the sun with tears that it stole from our bodies. The worst thing about genocide isn't the hunger, the murder, the politics, it's the silence. For 3 months, they closed the schools down because people like us are an eyesore. So the first month, we took it. The second, we waited. And the third month, we met underneath the date palm trees, drinking up every second our teachers gave us, turning fruit pits into fractions. And on the last day, they came with a message, put them in their place. We didn't stand a chance. Flesh was never meant to dance with silver bullets. So we prayed for the sun to come and melt daggers from our backs. I hid underneath the bed that day with 4 other people. 12 years later, and I can't help but wonder where my cousins hid when the soldiers torched the houses, threw the bodies in the wells. So if the weapons didn't get you, the poison would. And sometimes they didn't want to use bullets because it would cost them more than we did. I've seen 16 ways to stop a heart when you build nations on someone's bones. What sense does it make to break them in one day? My mother choked on rifle smoke. My father washed the blood from his face. My uncles carried half the bodies to the hospital, the rest to the grave. And we watched. For every funeral we planned, there were 60 we couldn't. Half the sand in the Sahara tastes a lot like powdered bone. And when the soldiers came, our blood on their ankles, I remember their laces, scarlet footprints on the floor. Our parents came home with broken collarbones and the taste of fear carved into their skin, and it was impossible to believe in anything. Fear is the coldest thing in the desert, and it burns you, bows you down to half your height, and owns you, and no one hears you. Because what could grow in the desert anyway?
Right, so powerful. We are just in awe of Emi Mahmoud as a poet and a peace leader and so much more. We are honored to have with us live another incredible peace leader. Rawana Rajule is an analyst, a commentator, and a AMEL speaker, among so many other roles. And she is here to share with us her thoughts and experiences about Syria and beyond. So please take it away, Rawan.
Thank you very much, Megan, and thank you for the organizers of the vigil. A decade ago, the crisis in Syria started as a response to peaceful protest in 2011 that quickly became a protracted conflict and a complex humanitarian crisis. An exodus of 5.5 million refugees has ensued, along with over 6 million Syrians displaced inside Syria. Militarily, there are 5 foreign armies in Syria in the format of actual armies supporting proxies and militias. This means 5 territories of influence, alongside with a handful of national and foreign extremist groups. What a tragic mess, basically. This is what we all know about Syria, but no one is talking about citizens inside of Syria, the regular citizens who have no power or say in the conflict. They say if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. But that's why I'm here to tell you that Syria and Syrians are resilient in creating life from ashes. The awful genocide in Syria did not start in 2011. It actually started in 1982. It was the Hama massacre. The Syrian Arab army under the command of Hafez al-Assad and his brother ended an uprising and a campaign begun in 1976 by Sunni Muslim groups, including the Muslim Brotherhood, against Assad, or as they say, the government. My name is Rawana Rajule. I'm a Syrian American human rights advocate. I left Syria in 2012. But why am I here? I'm here to tell you that just how not all of you probably didn't know about Hama, I and millions of Syrians didn't know about the Holocaust. Being raised in Syria, there was a systematic approach to cut us off from the world's cruelest strategies like the Holocaust, so the government can control the narratives and practice its false propaganda that is based on creating an enemy to justify its own cruel and criminal atrocities against its own people. I promise to share a story about young Syrians creating life despite the death. Life from Ashes. I want to talk about Wata the Group. It's an NGO based in Damascus, working on 3 main scopes: child protection, women engagement, and community development. Their main actions are represented by Scouts troops with non-formal and value-based educational method and responding to the most vulnerable people. Check them out. They have a Facebook page and a website. Well, Megan asked me to share a personal story, but being here right now, telling you about Syria, about Hama, and Watad's organization is by itself a huge risk on emotional level and safety level. The problem now is the polarization and deep division among Syrians created this kind of disparity among us. If you are not 100% pro the revolution and defending it, then you are with Assad. And the opposite is true. And that's why it's important to be here, so we can keep the focus on the human aspect of tragic events, regardless of the political affiliation. Otherwise, it will be just an endless and vicious cycle of revenge. This is why I'm here to tell you the story about Syrians. Despite the 5 territories of influences, we're trying to come together and regard this kind of tragedies and disattach from the political affiliation. Also, we are here to remember Syria, Sudan, Yemen, the Holocaust, the Armenian genocide, and others. We are here to say never again, but also we are here to share experiences and story. If the world knew about the horror of Hama massacre in the 80s, probably, just probably, the international community, the international civil society, human rights movement may have acted and approached the atrocities in 2011 differently. Knowledge is power. As a global citizens connected via virtual world right now, our stories should be shared and our voices should be heard. Thank you very much. I'm very blessed to be part of this global network, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Rowan. Thank you for being with us, for sharing. We know that you are doing so much to make sure that never again is a reality for all. So please keep up the good work. And we know that there are so many incredible individuals and groups doing incredible work in Syria, from individual youth-led initiatives to organizations like the White Helmets, whose website states, the White Helmets motto is taken from the Quran: to save a life is to save all of humanity. In a conflict where so many have chosen violence, the White Helmets wake up every day to save the lives that others are trying so hard to take. And there's initiatives like this all over, and we honor those individuals and groups doing the best they can in the worst of circumstances. We want to now take a deeper dive into the human experiences in Syria, hearing from someone who we will call only Syrian activist in order to protect his safety. So please, Syrian activists, the floor is now yours. If you need to be promoted to panelist,
You should be joining us in just a moment.
Okay, I see that now. Okay, Syrian activists, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you for being here with us today. I'm a Syrian activist, and I've been in Syria for the whole period of the war, a war that took the lives of hundreds of thousands and displaced millions, a war that is so complicated that even we Syrians can barely understand the different dynamics of it. The war, as you probably know, has too many faces: political, social, economic, regional, and even international. But probably the most dangerous of them all is how it evolved to become a war about identity rather than anything else. I would say that the war took an identity-based approach pretty fast, especially since Syria has a wide variety of religions, sects, ethnicities, and ideologies. And soon into the war, it became evident that the political stand and the religion of people would decide if they to survive or not, which obviously later paved the way for ISIS and other terrorist groups to be founded and operate in the country. If I want to look back at the past 10 years or so, there is no doubt that all the different forces and sides of the Syrian war are guilty of identity-based discrimination and violence, or sometimes both. All without any exception, the regime, the opposition, and the mercenaries, and even the international parties involved in Syria. And I saw that with my own eyes. Even the community I was born into, and at some point even I, yes, I was about to be indoctrinated into hating others different from me, especially at the first year or two of the war, when I was still at school, and where the elementary speech was at its highest form from all sides, especially directed to us, the youth back then, explaining that people who are not like us, they are absolutely against us, and they should be punished. As Rawan mentioned before, if you're not supporting this political side, then you're obviously with the other. You can't really be something in between. And it's been like this forever since then. Thousands of people lost their lives. Even I, at some point, lost my life at some point because of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, because of my identity. Nowadays, it's not acceptable to be neutral or to seek peace. You should pick a side. And ironically, the side is already picked for you based on your city or on your religion. If you're born in this city, you're supposed to support this political side. And if you're born holding those religious beliefs, you're supposed to have to support that side. It's very difficult for you to change those stereotypes because your own people would turn against you. Not to mention that the other side would look at you very suspiciously, or maybe as someone called a friend of mine, a double agent. I often listen to civil society and political leaders these days of related to the Syrian war, and the only thing they focus on is throwing accusations at each other about who started this kind of identity based violence. Like it's acceptable to retaliate by the same method. Well, it's not. I don't think it is at all. Why would you kill anyone for what their political stand they take? Why would you kill anyone for the religion or the sect they belong to? Something they have not chosen, obviously. Why? Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really make much sense for me. This obviously throughout the years resulted in a very fragile societal structure and high tension, even in relatively peaceful areas. And the tension is yet waiting to explode at any second. In these peaceful areas, where there is not literally identity-based violence, there is identity-based discrimination when it comes to professional, to educational, basically any opportunity out there. And the sad reality is that when we start to treat each other like this, the international community is following the way that we are doing to each other. I myself was rejected from a scholarship to pursue my dream degree because of where I'm from and what is my religious background. No one cared to listen to me. No one cared to ask me. They prefer to keep their ideas that they have about the groups that I belong to, overgeneralizing and stereotyping, obviously easier than to challenge the ideas that people have. We need people to get together. We need people from all ethnicities, all religions, all sects, and even all political sides to sit together and to focus on the things that brings us together and proactively work towards the things that towards our differences, which basically makes this country this diverse country. Ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to turn on my video today, despite not showing my face, to show Syrians inside and outside the country, and to show the whole world that I am also a human. Let's just treat each other like this. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much, Syrian activist. Our hearts bleed for every word you have said. And we are in awe and just so inspired by your human spirit and your perseverance. In the AMEL community, there are so many who have had similar experiences. Some of them living in Syria, many who have been living in limbo for years in refugee camps in Jordan, in Turkey, Lebanon, and so on. We honor you all and keep you in our thoughts always, especially on a day like today. Turning now to the other end of the Middle East, Yemen, which also has a rich history of diversity. We are honored to have with us one of the best human beings I have ever met. His humanity is so clear and so contagious when you meet him that there is just no other way to describe him. But I guess I should mention that Mohammed Al-Samawi is also a published author, an interfaith and peace leader who has his own organization, and he's here with us to share some experiences, some firsthand stories, anecdotes, some thoughts about growing up in Yemen and moving to the United States later and all that happened in between. So Mohammed Al-Samawi, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Megan, so much. I'm so honored to be with you guys. You know, as you said, like I'm from Yemen, and I came to United States almost 6 years ago. And it's devastating for me, honestly, to be here in the United States. Every day when I wake up from my sleeping, the first thing I do, I just look to my phone and I see the news from my country. It's devastating to see my country in a war where people are suffering. They can't even find food. If you are from a different identity than the other, you will find problems to be in an area or a different area in Yemen. But I want to tell you something that you will not find it in the news. In the news right now, when you read the newspaper, you always find that Yemen has the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, which is true. But people don't know that Yemen, it used to be not like that at all. Yemen, historically, in terms of religion, languages, there was no problematic at all of being different. Actually, in Yemen, in historically, like, you know, we used to have a woman as the queen in Yemen. We used to have a language, different languages, not only Arabic in Yemen. We used to have Himyaric language in Yemen. In faiths and beliefs, we used to have Jews, Christians, Baha'is, and even from Islam sects that you can't find it actually in other countries in the Middle East. You will find it in Yemen. What changed in Yemen is because of the war. And I don't want really to speak a lot about what caused the war in Yemen. And I think it's obvious to a lot of people that the war in Yemen, it doesn't cause from Yemenis themselves. It comes from different countries who have interest in Yemen itself. But I want to tell you that the suffering of Yemenis, comparing to anywhere else in the world, is without imaginable. For example, right now, I actually had a speech ready to tell you guys today, but I just received a message from my mom. We are speaking today. It's a day of Ramadan, where people in the Muslims people usually fast in Ramadan, and my mom and my family are fasting, and they just tell me that they don't have electricity at all. 24 hours, no electricity. There is no security at all. There is no police at all. And it's really devastated to even see that the schools, it's not working. Also from COVID-19 situation, people are suffering a lot in Yemen with COVID-19. Imagine that there is no hospitals even working for Yemen for COVID-19. People are suffering a lot. Speaking about all this suffering in Yemen, I just want to know that I pray one time that the Jews in Yemen will back to Yemen. Last month, there was an article at the forward saying that there was no Jews anymore left in Yemen. And it was not the case at all. But now, even the Baha'is themselves are suffering. The Baha'is, they can't own houses anymore in Yemen. They can't even work in public jobs if they are Baha'is. They suspend the bank's accounts for Baha'is. And that came all from ignorance and from the war itself. The war caused all this kind of ignorance about the others. I myself was a victim of ignorance because of the war. I had to flee my country within 13 days of the war in Yemen because of like not accepting the others at all. And I'm still suffering from that. I still see a therapist because of what I've seen in Yemen just for 13 days. Imagine about my family who've been living in the war for 6 years, my friends, my community who's suffering. Unfortunately, there is not even an easy way for Yemenis to travel. Usually when I tell my story, people tell me that I have a good story to tell. And and I say always, like, you need to wait for the 24 million Yemenis still suffering in the war in Yemen. Because there is no airports really, there's no flights really for Yemenis to travel and to tell their own stories. There is a lack of coverage of amazing stories of individuals in Yemen. But despite of the war and the conflict that's happening in Yemen, I want to highlight the youth, the young people in Yemen. The young people really is the hope of ending the war in Yemen. It's actually the hope of even giving infrastructure and structure for the country itself. There is organizations like Muwatana Organization for Human Rights. They're working really hard to let people live a little bit in dignity, a little bit in freedom in Yemen. You need to imagine that actually in Yemen, there's no government in the ground. The government actually in another country. There is only extreme groups right now who is controlling Yemen. In the north, you have Houthis who are affiliated with Iran and Hezbollah. In the south, you have different groups who are affiliated with Saudi Arabia and Iran. And in the end, Saudi Arabia and Emirates. And in the end, Yemenis themselves are having no clue how to manage their lives, except the young people, they're trying to do their own initiatives. I see always like young people trying to go to teach kids, and they're trying to give medicine to people who even now with COVID-19, actually young initiatives who they go and try to help those people who need help with COVID-19. I would like you to think a little bit about how you can help Yemen. Imagine like this, a cup of coffee that you drink every day can actually give food for a family, 5 members of family in Yemen for a couple of days. So imagine if you can help them by that, how much different will be in their lives. You can also help Yemenis by support these young organizations. You can support young people on their initiatives. And it will not take any money. It will not take a lot of money. Really, even $1 to $10 to $100 can make a big difference on it. And I hope you can be able to contribute to that. AMEL definitely doing an amazing job in Yemen. And definitely if you want to be in touch with some of these young people and some of the, or Muwatana, please reach out to AMEL and they will put you in touch with them. And I hope you can put Yemen in your praise. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Habibi Muhammad, for sharing with us. I know every single person listening is so appreciative, and me more than anyone else. Now, I know that some are now referring to Yemen as a genocide, while others push against that and argue against it. But no matter what, the fact is that Yemen is right now the world's largest humanitarian crisis, with hundreds of thousands, if not millions, are on the brink of starvation or without basics needed for life and needed to survive. Too many are losing their lives every day for no other reason than the fact that they are Yemeni. Meanwhile, in my home country of Sudan, I was 14 years old when the genocide in Darfur broke out. And over there too, nobody was calling it a genocide. It took so long for that designation to come through. But people in Darfur knew what it was because they lived it. Every single day, they were living that genocide. I'm so honored to turn the word over to my incredible friend, Nadia, who could not be with us live today, but who spoke to me a few hours ago. Nadia is an incredible journalist and multimedia producer for Voice of America and currently resides in Washington, DC. Let's take it away.
I'm really glad that Muhammad, you brought me in this platform and to talk about my home country. Therefore, as we talk, and we know it actually, I know Muhammad when he was really young, and he was one of the youngest people who started working on Darfur as a volunteer. And actually, when I started talking about the phone, and he's like, I was in your house, and I was like, that's why I always look your face is very familiar to me. He was really young when he started helping people in Sudan as a volunteer. He was like 16 or something. He was so young. I was also young, but he's younger than me, actually. When the war started, therefore, I was in high school. Actually, a lot of people from all over the village around my home country, Al-Fashir, they flew in Darfur and they come to Al-Fashir before the NGOs. Al-Fashir become the home, and we start giving food, start giving shelter and blanket and everything we have. And then several months, we end up having a bigger city than Fashir, actually. Salam comes, like Nifasha come, Abuja come, and then it come another camp, it's called Zamzam. And they become one of the biggest refugees camp in Sudan, and actually one of the biggest camps in Africa. And I was so glad that I was there, and I was also one of the volunteers, and I was helping people around there. And then I ended up going to university. But one thing I will remember very well, that the days they arrived in that camp, it was really cold. And some women, they are not having enough blanket to cover their kids. They used to open the grass, the hole and the ground, the dig place to put their kids, and they cover them to survive until the NGOs they came and they give them shelter. Because North Darfur is not like the rest of Darfur. It's very semi-Saharan, so it's very open. And when the weather is so cold, it becomes really dry and cold. And one thing I remember, I was traveling to Altina, and that was for my high school. My dad was there. When we're traveling there, it's a lot of village. We like normally. One thing about Darfur I forgot to mention, like until 2003, we never had a hotel in all over Darfur. There is nothing called hotel, because people we hospitalize people. We bring people in our homes. We don't have, like, if you came to Darfur as a guest, you don't stay in a hotel or Airbnb or any place. We just every house has a guest house, and for free, and we give food for free. That's how hospitalized Sudanese people in the western part of Sudan. So when we are traveling to Ditina, the road is rough, so we have to travel by 2 days, 3 days, because of the street or road are not function well. So we used to go to those village, and they give us food, and then we sleep over, and then next day we move, daytime we travel. When I was coming back, all those villages are not there, believe me. All of them are burned. That's something I saw in my life, and I really traumatized that time. Like, oh, what happened? Like nothing. And this genocide in Darfur, believe me, it happened very quick. Even you cannot imagine like how quick was when they start burning that. And I'm really sad about it. We fought a lot about Darfur, and that would give me the courage to be a journalist. Actually, I was trying to be a lawyer, but I ended up being a journalist. So I went to law school in Sudan. When I graduated from law school, I was coming back to help women in Darfur and to help them to speak out, because a lot of women, they've been raped in Darfur. And as you know, the history of the rape in Darfur, they use them as a weapon. So the guerrilla style. So we went and I was trying to help them, but I wasn't able to do anything because when I come back, Darfur it's not like before. And then I end up has to go back to Khartoum to do my bar. And then I got a job in Nairobi as a radio reporter because they were looking for someone who speak Arabic, English, and my local language, Zagawa language. And my tribe is one of the biggest Africa tribe who they faced the genocide. Like my mom village is completely damaged. That's the village where I born actually before they brought me Al Fashir. My mom also passed away in 2003 at that time because she was not eating, she was not sleeping because she had very bad news that her village completely been burned, and my younger sister was born there and she was living with my grandmom and no one has news about them. So my mom was really sick and she was thinking a lot about her family and she asked everyone and they said that village is not there anymore. And they end up, actually my grandma, she passed away this year, by the way, and my uncles and my aunties and the entire family, some of them, they died, but my mom family, they didn't lose anyone, but they lost my cousin, my one young cousin passed away. But they ran to a place called Mahajiria. From Mahajiria, they went to Niala because actually my grandfather has a house there. And by the time they find out that they're alive and everything, my mom, she got really sick because she wasn't eating and she's a really sensitive person. And my grandmother has to come all the way from Mahajiria and traveling by a donkey like 7 days. I remember the day she arrived to Al Fashir. Even you can't look at her because she was traveling for 7 days and her clothes is really dirty. She was coming to tell my mom that everyone survived and stuff. But my mom passed away actually. I passed away after my grandmom came after 1 month, yeah. So Darfur War for me is a very sensitive things actually. Yeah, Muhammad, you can ask me anything.
Thank you so much, yeah, Nadia, for
you're welcome. Yeah,
sharing that. It cannot be easy, and I can see you're getting emotional, and it's not
actually, yeah. I don't want to go back to the history, but actually, it's good that we did it.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate that you sharing so vulnerably and so openly. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and then I actually had a chance, if we can continue, I had a chance to travel in all the camps after I started working with Sudan Radio Service in Nairobi, and I had a privilege or a good way to cover whole history of Darfur and how the war started. Actually, at that time, because as I said in the beginning, it was in my childhood and didn't know how the war started. Actually, I just know that people are dying and stuff, but actually I never know about the justice and equality. I had to get chance to travel a lot, and then I went to the refugees camps in Chad. And I found out there is a huge number. It's almost 700,000 people from Darfur. They went to Chad, and they've been protected in Chad there for still now. It's like some people now become teenagers there actually. We have a total of 16 or 14 camps up north. We have 4 or 5. Yeah, we have a lot of camps there. And I had to go to Tregin. I went to Abu Nabak. I went to all those areas and I met all the refugees and I talked to them. And they were like, we never had a journalist from Sudan actually came. And by that time, the only issue is Khartoum government is not allowing anyone to cover. They don't allow like actually a lot of journalists to cover the conflict. It was a taboo for them because they don't want the people find out the truth about Darfur. Thanks for the campaign from America, and we had a very huge campaign. Actually, the former President Barack Obama, when he was senator, he visited those camps in Chad, and there's still a lot of people, a lot of women in Darfur. Those kids, they call them Obama, by the way. There are a lot of kids, we have Obama name and Okambo name. Actually, this is something I found out in that camp. But still, the situation is not being solved, and still people are living in the same camps. I hope one day it come and they can go back to Darfur. And actually, we have now a lot of newcomers from different countries as Arab people. They're living in that land. And they think is that land belonged to them because of the war. People decided to be in the IDPs and refugees camp. I hope one day they can go back to their land and they can. Most of those countries are, most of those people are nomad. I mean, are farmers and nomads, and they used to be keeping a lot of animals, and they have their farmers, but they end up being living in IDPs camp, and they depend on the international aid. Like, can you imagine 17 years people are just depending on aid? And therefore it used to known as one of the richest side of Sudan, and actually it was the richest kingdom in Africa. If you know the history, we used to give aid to Saudi and the Emirat and stuff by our Sultan Ali Dinar. Historically, like the people who they used to go to the Makkah and Hajj, they get the food and stuff from Darfur kingdom. So we known as we have rich, flight, very nice area, land, and now we end up being relying on the aid. That's why I hope one day my people, my family, everyone has to go back to the land and they can start farming and they can have a great future. I hope they'll not rely again and they live in IDP camps actually.
Inshallah, one day.
Inshallah.
You shared like a really painful part of your life, and it was.
I don't like to talk about it, by the way. Normally, I will just talk about it when I want, but normally I don't like to talk about it. Yeah, but it's reality, and I have to talk about it. Yeah.
Absolutely, and we're honored that you were able to share it today. And it begs a question in my head, like going through all this loss and grief back when 2003, 2004, and all these atrocities were around you. What gave you the hope to continue going on at the time?
Actually, what gave me a hope, I think my mom used to be a very strong woman, and before she passed away, she really was saying, I forgive you. I was really like very sharp, and I was really studying well, and when I was I'm the only oldest girl, and I have brothers, but I'm the oldest daughter for her. My younger sister grew up with my grandmama, as I said, and I was staying with her. I was taking care of her actually, as she's really sick with malaria, typhoid, and all those kind of sickness. Plus, she was not eating and thinking a lot of her family. She was strong somehow, but maybe she's so sensitive of, like, if she had anyone sick, she will not eat until the person get well. That's kind of her. But she was telling me, you're different, you're not like me, and I don't want you to be like me. Don't break up, don't be broken by anything. So actually, maybe I go into my dad's side, because my dad is like, if heard all the world, no one is there, he will stay strong. So I think what I did in my life, what I travel a lot in all Sudan, and becoming a journalist and covering conflict area in Sudan, Blue Nile, Nuba Mountains, and Darfur, and I saw people are living scarce and struggling, and people are dying, and I saw a lot of atrocities, and plus working in Boko Haram areas, and I saw people they killed. I still very strong, and I still, like, when I come back home, I just pray for them that one day they can get hope, and then I move on to the next story, and maybe that's something God give it to me. I might look very strong, but I'm still, as you see me, my fears is almost always in my eyes. Yeah, that's how I am, and I hope to stay stronger, and I will not break one day.
And we're here for you. All your friends love you, Nadia. We'd love to share the burden with you, and I hope you will consider me one of those friends.
Yeah, I know. Thank you so much.
And now I would like, I know that the time is running out, so I would like just to end with one question. 18 years later now, since almost 18 years since the genocide started in Darfur, what has changed, and what gives you hope for the future?
The only thing now change is there is a peace deal signed by most of the Darfur movement, equality and movement. Finally, they signed a peace agreement. Justice and equality, they find a peace agreement. And most of the Darfurians movement, they signed a peace agreement. Hopefully, Abdul Wahid, Justice and Equality, I mean Sudan Liberation Movement, Abdul Wahid Function will sign. There is hope that he can sign. And then hopefully they had to come back from Khartoum by some time and stay in Darfur. And then they can save the civilian. As you see, this month and last month, there's a lot of atrocities happening in Western Darfur, part of Guinea. And I hope those people, they get peace, and people even in the IDPs camp, they've been attacked by militias. I hope they can control the guns in Darfur, and then people can live safe. Actually, Darfur, it wasn't like this. You can travel like 1,000 miles and miles and no one will ask you where are you going. But now it's really hard to travel even 100 miles or 5 miles out of Al-Fashir. I hope people, they can get peace, and people, they can go back to their land. And I hope the new people who they came to take the land to go back to their countries or wherever they come from, to let people of Darfur to go back to their homes. And then hopefully we don't have, also there is a big thing killing us in Darfur and the rest of the Sudan, the racism. Because what happened is like Arabic speaking people against the African indigenous people, and that's something is not good. And I hope one day people, they realize that all of us are human beings and we can live together safely and peacefully.
Thank you so much, Nadia, for spending this time with us. We're honored to be at the listening end of your story, and thank you for being so amazing. And we hope to have you always around AMEL and Together Remember Coalition, and we'll see you in more events.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Shukran.
So once again, we thank Nadia for sharing so vulnerably and so openly. And as Nadia said initially, in Darfur, there were no international organizations yet at the scene when the genocides broke out, and even those who tried could not really reach Darfur in time. So all the initial efforts to help Darfurians, including the building of the first camps, the first hospitals, field hospitals to cure the injured, taking care of the kids, the IDPs, it was all up to young people, people like Nadia, high school students and others from all over Sudan, who came and poured towards Darfur and led these efforts to help their brothers and sisters in Darfur. They came from Khartoum, from Northern Sudan, from West, from South Sudan, all lending a helping hand and doing their best to be useful in that situation. Over the last few years, I've seen a revival of this spirit of solidarity and collective action taken by young people in Sudan, as young people took to the streets in mass numbers to protest the government of dictator Omar al-Bashir. When al-Bashir's regime tried to label that movement as something something nefarious, being incited by Darfurian rebels and others, people, young protesters, strongly and unequivocally released a slogan, "We are all Darfur," that became really the spirit of the whole revolution. It was a message of rejection, outright rejection of division and racism of Omar al-Bashir and his regime, and a rejection of any identity-based discrimination and violence in Sudan. By banding together and standing together as human beings above all, they managed to topple the regime of Omar al-Bashir and began a process of democratic transition and peace in Sudan that is ongoing as we speak. So young people can and are taking action to stop and respond to violence and atrocities, be it in Sudan, Tigray in Ethiopia, Rwanda, all over Africa and the Middle East, And here, similarly here in the United States, we have seen over the last year, young people join together and organized against racial injustice here in this country, and led the largest demonstrations this country has ever seen, as well as took meaningful steps and actions to correct those injustices, something that lasts beyond the protest. Young people are interrupting and preventing and transforming the cycles that lead to identity-based violence and genocide. Genocides do not just happen spontaneously. They don't just, break overnight. It's the result of a long process of hate accumulation. And once it reaches a critical point, violence breaks out, and in worst case scenarios, genocides happen. Interrupting that cycle is not only possible, it's happening all over, here in America, all over the world, in Africa and the Middle East. And we hope that you will participate in that habit of interrupting what leads to genocides. Those of you here today, or our speakers, our incredible speakers from Africa and Middle East and the US who joined us today, are doing that every day. But also our community here showing up with their candles to honor the victims are doing that. And all of you listening to this vigil, wherever you are able and can take action to interrupt the cycles of hate. And those of you who do it every day, whether by interrupting a racist speech from somebody or by taking an action here and there or signing a petition, thank you so much for all what you do. And please, please keep doing it. It's the only way anything will ever change. And with that, I turn it to Megan for the last word.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you to all of our speakers. We're so honored that you joined us today. So as Mohammed said, at AMEL, we're working to empower young human rights activists all across Africa and the Middle East, as well as here in the United States where we're based. We work with young leaders who, like us, envision a world where nobody experiences violence, persecution, or atrocities because of their identity. That's why in our online institute, we have a module where we focus on genocide history and prevention in order to learn, as Mohammed said, what are these processes? How does it start from daily discriminatory acts and then escalate up the so-called pyramid of hate until it reaches the point of genocide. So we've had online training programs that we piloted in 2019. And we were so happy to have David Estrom from Together We Remember joining us for that. We are now expanding that training content, and we will run it again in an online training program later this summer and fall. So if you would like to study with us, or if you would like to partner with us, please do reach out. You can see our website here, amelproject.org, and we will post it also in the chat. Thank you again, everyone who joined to listen. Thank you to the Together We Remember Coalition, who came together and is running amazing hours before us and after us. Thank you to all of our AMEL community who we would like to invite on screen with us now to hold up your candles. We do this because we want to honor victims and survivors and upstanders. And we want to remember all of these cases of humanity at its worst, because we want to inspire humanity at its best. So please, everyone, hold up your candle. And let's all honor each other. Thank you so much.